Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and the spooky season has returned back to Azeroth for yet another year, with a Hallows event back up and available, which, yes, it does mean it's yet another opportunity to get disappointed for yet another year because the Headless Horseman's mount did not drop yet again. But this holiday did bring in with a couple of new changes this time around. There's a brand new mount, a bunch of new Transmog pieces for a whole new set that you can obtain, as well as a bunch of unique items that are available that are returning items on the vendor, plus also a handful of new additions. This event also offers players an opportunity to get a nice boost to the EXP and reputation, offering 10% to both of these factors. However, the event is available only for a short bit of time, and will have some exclusive rewards that you'll want to jump onto as soon as possible. So for today's video, I wanted to go over the newest update for the Hallows and event, as well as all of the rewards and how to farm them, so to make sure you don't miss out on any of these things before the event eventually departs. As always, if you guys want to see more regular updates for War Within, Legion Remix, or anything Midnight Alpha, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. So with the return of Hallows, and you're going to be diving back into the Headless Horseman dungeon, which, yes, this is yet another chance for you to be able to obtain a lot of the unique rewards from that instance specifically. And you will want to start queuing this dungeon as soon as possible, and try to do it daily because there's a ton of new cool rewards that are associated with that dungeon. When you do queue for the dungeon, make sure you enable curses at the very beginning. These curses kind of add little affixes or additional mechanics to the encounter that only will be visible to you, not to other players. So you are technically making the boss harder. And if you want to put the boss on hard mode, click the curse, or I guess statue, in the center that will enable all 4 curses at the same time. This does make the fight technically more difficult, however it's not that much more difficult. A lot of the times, especially with player scaling and endgame gear, with everybody doing the instance, the boss is gonna get one shot before he's even up for like an entire minute. So definitely do all the curses because they will allow you to have higher chances of obtaining some of the better items from the loot-filled pumpkins, which you will obtain by defeating the boss on that character. Now, one of the reasons why you want to do this dungeon, especially daily, is because you'll be able to get yet another chance of the Headless Horseman's mount. It is something that a bunch of players keep going after every single year. It still has a very low drop rate for every one of your ults. However, your first attempt at the dungeon every day while the event is active is slightly higher. I don't really know exactly by how much, but they slightly increase it to be just a little bit higher chance to get it. But outside of this, you can keep spamming this on all of your old characters for like an incredible low chance to obtain it. So you still, if you don't have this mount right now, you will still want to throw an army of ults at the dungeon and defeating the final boss as often as possible. The other mount is going to be the Headless Horseman's Ghoulish Charger, which is yet another one of those charger mounts that we've had recently on the trading post. It looks absolutely amazing. It's like a more fleshed out version of the original, but this one will be once a day attempt. You can't farm this one. You will only have one chance a day while the event is active to obtain it. However, every time you don't obtain the mount, that chance goes up to be a little higher and a little higher and a little higher. So it has some bad luck protection attached to it. So there's a pretty good chance, as long as you're pretty diligent at queuing this dungeon daily, you will eventually be able to add this beauty to your collections. And then we also have the green version. We got the white one over from the trading post, but you can get the green, the OG version of the Horseman's Ghoulish Collection set. And these pieces you'll be able to obtain separately one by one as you do the actual dungeon instance. These pieces, however, are a guarantee from the dungeon, so you just need to do enough times, specifically 9 times, to be able to collect every single piece of the set, but you'll be able to guarantee this set specifically. And there's even some variations of this set as well, like 2 types of helmets, like the original normal helm, but then also one with the collar around it, which it's really difficult to see because of my shoulders, but you can see like there's no collar on this one, and there's a collar around this one as well. So you can kind of get some bit of a different combination to use with different sets. And it's a really good looking set altogether, definitely worth obtaining, and since it's pretty much a guarantee. Now, another collectible you can obtain is Arthas, which is the good dagger, but a spirit dagger. This one is also on a daily lockout of you potentially being able to get it from the dungeon instance. And the last item is being the Windborn Velocidrake decoration, specifically the Hallows and armor pack. So this is a dragon riding, Dragon Isles, Dragonflight specific mount that are a little bit more customizable, and this is a saddle for that mount specifically. So definitely try to get the dungeon as early as possible and at least have a daily queue for it. But if you have an army of wolves to throw at it for the original Horseman's Charger, that is definitely worth doing if you are feeling adventurous in your RNG. If you're feeling pretty confident in your RNG chances. Outside of that, the Hallow's End event does have a actual staging area, a little camp outside of Stormwind and outside of Ruins of Lordaeron, where they have the big statue that you get to burn, and both Alliance and Horde get a reputation buff as well as XP buff during this event. Alliance gets it for just burning the statue, Horde gets to burn the statue and use the Wickerman's ashes in order to apply a Grim Visage buff, so there's slightly different buffs, but they accomplish the same thing. They increase your experience gain by 10%, but also your reputation by 10% as well, so if you're behind in reps or are leveling characters outside of Legion Remix for whatever reason, you can utilize the Grim Visage. But I think if anything, for max level characters that are still trying to finish out the reps specifically, this would be a very, very good buff for that in particular. And another big part of the new staging ground that we have during this event is the vendor rewards, and they actually have a couple of new items that you'll be able to obtain, like with most other holidays. One of the new items will be the Horseman's Weapons, which is 2 types of sword, a one-hander, a two-hander, as well as a shield that goes really well with the Horseman's Riders set. We also have the returning items such as the patched Harvest Golem set pieces. Basically every item from head to toe and all the different pieces that you will need to purchase separately, unfortunately, which is going to take quite a bit of time. We also got the Prowler's shoulder cape as well as the headgear, which is one of my favorite cosmetics that you can get. I feel like they go super well with many different sets. There's also a bucket of morbid treats for an offhand, boss costumes, which will make it look like some of the more iconic bosses of previous expansions, a Hearthstone toy as well as a variety of other toys to add to your collections, and a bunch of other fun holiday items that are thematic around the Hallow's End event. There's also other vendors like a wand vendor for fun items if you just want to turn your raid and party members into a variety of different creatures. And there's also a mask vendor, although you could get a lot of masks just for completing the dungeon, as well as a pet vendor if you're really into maximizing every single one of your possible collectibles. Now, all of these vendor items will be sold for a unique currency called Tricky Treats. And unlike the Oktoberfest currency, Tricky Treats are not warbound, which is unfortunate. So because they're not warbound, it means you have to have enough of these treats on a single character in order to be able to purchase any of the vendor items. Now, when it comes to farming Tricky Treats, one of the best ways to really just outright farm them, like literally just collect a bunch of them, though this may take you a bit of time, is through the Candy Bucket Farm, where you have to fly from inn to inn all throughout Azeroth and look Tricky Treats all over the place. There's a bunch of different treat locations, especially in some of the big zones like the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, which is going to have you flying all up and down the coasts. You also have zones in Outland, Northrend, Pandaria, Draenor, Broken Isles, which are the Legion zones, BFA zones of Kul Tiras and Zandalar. We have the Dragon Isles as well as Kaz Algar. And there's so many different buckets for you to collect, and all of them give you anywhere between like 1 to 3 treats at a time. But there's so many different inns, which is probably the best way for you to just sit down and farm out a huge bulk of these treats if you're someone who has, I don't know, a couple of hours to spend maybe just flying from location to location. One of the best ways to use it is to use the Candy Bucket add-on, which I'll have linked in the description. Definitely is worth picking that one up, especially for some of the other events, because it will actually tell you where each and every single one of the candy buckets are. And once you loot it, it'll remove it from your map location, so you can just keep track of which ones you've gotten and which ones you haven't. It makes it easy because you can click it, and it'll give you a map pin as you're flying around. It'll tell you exactly where it is, so they're super convenient, and it'll share the entire map and how many of them are all over the place and some of the places where you should go to collect all of your treats. When you do end up going to one of the inns to collect the Tricky Treats, you may be tricked or treated. If you are treated, it usually gives you some sort of a positive buff, like a costume, that doesn't stop your progress in farming. However, sometimes your character may be tricked and usually put on some kind of a costume, turning you into like a critter, like a cat or a frog or some kind of like a monstrosity of sorts, and you kind of stun locked on your character for a little bit of time. It just does not let you fly or use any abilities whatsoever, which can definitely slow down the grind experience a little bit. However, this is the little trick that players have started doing in order to avoid getting the bad debuff. If your character does the /sit emote before you accept the actual quest from the bucket itself, which usually can be done by hitting X on your keyboard, that is usually the normal keybind for sitting down in game specifically. But if you're sitting down before you accept the quest, it usually prevents you from being tricked. It will give you an error on your screen, like your character needs to be standing in order to use that action, but it just allows you to skip the trick part completely, so you can just go back to flying from one location to the next. But the bucket farming is really the best way to farm trick-or-treats. You technically do have dailies that you can do outside of the Hallow's Ground area. You also get a few treats for every time you complete the dungeon with a daily lockout. But if you are trying to buy every single item on the vendor, all in a single sitting, the buckets and flying around to all the different inns with all the different zones is the fastest way for you to just hard grind that currency to purchase all of the items. So the actual event of getting them isn't difficult because you're just flying from area to area. And with skywriting in the game, it is very fast traversal for all the different zones compared to like old school flying. So it is not that difficult. It shouldn't take that much time, but it is still a lot of inns to get through and a lot of zones for you to get through. So this may take you a handful of days, but I think if you are trying to get every single item, this would be the best thing that I would recommend for anybody to do. Get the add-on for candy buckets, which again I'll have in the description of the video, and then fly to all the inns collecting all the candy buckets, making sure to sit down before you accept it, just so you don't have to deal with that nasty debuff. But with that being said, as always, I want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and hope you guys did enjoy this guide video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like, as I would very much appreciate it. Also, be sure to join our Discord community for any of the future major updates, but also some of the content that's currently available for things like Legion Remix, which is getting into Phase 2 content, also soon Midnight Alpha, which is getting regular other updates, and much more in the future. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.